Welcome, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. That song, which may be jarring to you, is popular. It is by the albino superstars about whom I have never heard a word until they read this book, Brad Thor's brand new best-selling thriller, Edge of Honor. Brad Thor's Edge of Honor in bookstores now, just in time for the 4th of July. In fact, Brad's going to join me for a full hour on the 4th of July to talk about Edge of Honor because it's very much a 4th of July book. But I wanted to play a little, we're doing a little teaser interview to get you set up for that. Brad, welcome back. Good to see you.
Listen, I'm $1,000 richer now because I bet Guy Benson that you would never say the words albino superstars in your career, and I just won $1,000. So thank you. Glad to be here.
There you go. It's Guy Benson. He's probably not going to let you collect. But I not only that, I've learned a lot of new. We will play them on the 4th of July hour. But I wanted my listeners on Tuesday to be able to order the book tonight so it can be delivered tomorrow so they can spend all of the 4th of July enjoying a 4th of July themed book. So tell people why Edge of Honor is perfect for the 4th of July.
I set this all, the story itself is set in the DC area, in DC, in the environs, in the lead up to Independence Day, where my hero, Scott Harvath, and I tell everybody my books are like the James Bond movies. Even if you've never seen a Bond movie before, you can go to the theater and see the latest one and you'll be all caught up. So my America's top spy, Scott Harvath, stumbles upon a conspiracy in DC where a shadowy cabal of insiders is trying to depose, to actually launch a coup against the youngest American president since JFK. And this is happening in the lead up in the 4th of July. So if you pick up the book now, you kind of get to read along in real time almost with the story itself.
There's a lot of backstory in here that will only be familiar to Beltway people, but I've always loved the 4th of July in Washington. I usually go down to the mall, but there are a few rooftops with excellent vantages of the fireworks. The best is on the south line of the White House, but it opens there. And I just love the fact, Brad, you finally set a novel in a city that I know something about. And there are a few things I don't know about. We'll talk about them on Friday the 4th, but I'm very juiced to actually know and understand the traffic patterns, the streets you're on. Are you getting a lot of that from people who've read this?
Yeah, I am. And it's really funny because I had a buddy of mine reach out to me and say that one of the patterns that the FBI agents do, he was part of John Ashcroft's protective security detail. And he said, we drove that exact same route. So for people who are DC people, they really love the fact that DC almost is like a character itself in the thriller.
Now, I do want to emphasize if people order this today from Amazon, Edge of Honor, it will come tomorrow and you can read it on the 4th of July. And you'll really enjoy it because it's a 4th of July theme. And how was the pre publication sale, Brad? You're always a number one New York Times bestseller. Is this exceeding every expectation again?
It's been fantastic. And there's something about tying it to the 4th of July, the big patriotic cover we have with the American flag on there, uh, in the storyline, the idea of this all taking place in the nation's capital, right at the edge, if you will, of the nation's birthday, seems to be sparking a lot of joy in people, patriotism, and I just seem to have lucked out and struck a really good chord with readers with this.
And we'll forgive you for having anything about Baltimore in there at all. Most of it is set in Virginia and the district, which I like. I don't like Maryland. I really don't like Baltimore at all, but there's only one Baltimore scene. Let me, before
Somebody
we've
gets
done the
shot.
teaser.
I mean, that's
I know.
Baltimore, right? I mean, it's not like I said there's a
Everyone
favorite
gets shot in
restaurant
Baltimore.
or a
Larry Hogan
hospitality.
would not like that. But let me ask you this: Scott Harvath, according to your end notes, where you give a shout out to Scott Schwimmer, who is your entertainment lawyer.
Weimer,
You note
yeah.
that Scott Harvath is coming to living color. What's the news there, Brad?
So we have made a big deal in Hollywood. We finalized the deal. We are just waiting for the announcement to get made. But Harvath is going to be the first season of Harvath is going to be an 8 episode season. It's going to be based on my very first novel. They are updating it to current times, and hopefully we will be shooting starting right after Christmas. So I'm super excited. And we've got the director of the John Wick movies. This is his first TV project. Howard Gordon, the force behind 24 and Homeland, is one of our executive producers. And then our lead writer and showrunner is Steve Lightfoot, who, among many other projects, was the writer that did The Punisher, that was on Netflix, 2 seasons of The Punisher. So we've got not only an A team, but an A plus team on this. Super excited.
You do, but Brad, there's been an oversight. My agent has not heard from the producers yet about my
We
role. Now,
haven't
Clint
started
Howard
casting.
had a role in Austin Powers, but if I see Guy Benson in the Harvath series and I'm not playing my Clint Howard role, I'm going to be very upset with you.
Well, you know what? I have to thank you, because if you had not said, again, if you had not mentioned that Norwegian band, I wouldn't, even if I don't get the money from Guy Benson, I kind of owe you now. So yes, I'll make sure that we get you up right away in front of the casting team.
Well, I went to a John Andrazi show recently, and every single conservative except Guy Benson, who might have left the fold for that night, I don't know why, was gathered in one room. I just think you ought to populate your series with little cameos of people from the center right world who are friends with yours, because they all read Edge of Honor and every other Scott Harvath book. And I wonder, this is my exit question for the teaser interview today. As you write these, do they get easier or harder, Brad?
They get harder. As you know, I'm the son of a United States Marine and a TWA flight attendant. And they told me, even if you push a broom as a career, you be the world's best broom pusher. So I keep raising the bar for myself every single year, putting my character into situations that he's never been in before. And this is my 24th thriller with Scott Harvath, 25th overall. So it's a lot of work, but that's what makes the work rewarding, is because it's challenging. If it was easy, I'd get bored and I wouldn't want to do it. And I love what I do.
And this one is going to keep everybody happy. There will be no buyer's remorse. So as soon as you finish listening to this, go over to your Amazon or your Barnes & Noble account. You can even run out to the local bookstore, order up Edge of Honor by Brad Thor. It'll be delivered tomorrow if you're Amazon Prime. You can enjoy it on the 4th of July, and boy, is it well timed for that, or for the long weekend that follows. Don't wait another day. And by the way, if you are in town this weekend promoting the book, my friend Glenn is a regular over at Off the Record in the basement of the Hay Adams, and he collects authors. So let me know, Brad, off the air, and I'll connect up you two. Don't go anywhere, America. I'll be right back to close today's show, except over to Amazon, and come back on July 4th for the full interview with Brad Thor about Edge of Honor. Stay tuned. Morning glory and evening grace, America, and a happy 4th of July to you. It's a special edition of the Hugh Hewitt Show celebrating our nation's independence. Coming up, Dr. Larry Arnn. Dr. Harry Jaffa from an old interview 25 years ago. Dr. Arnn of Hillsdale College will be commenting on that. But to get us in the mood and get us off to a good start, as promised on Wednesday, Brad Thor is back to spend the hour with us talking about his brand new thriller, Brad Thor's Edge of Honor. Edge of Honor is in bookstores now. It's available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's taken off. It's #1. You've seen Brad on all the morning shows because he always launches his book in the summer. And I just think it's great to have you here on the 4th of July. Happy 4th to you, Brad. You write at the end of this book, this is your favorite holiday. Why is that? Son of the Marine sort of thing?
Son of the Marine sort of thing. Reagan, Republican. And Ronald Reagan used to tell a fabulous story, Hugh, if you'll indulge me here for just 2 seconds, about a Cuban immigrant in a cafe in Miami, speaking with an American doctor and an American lawyer, telling the story about how he escaped Castro's Cuba. Shark-infested waters, the small boat, how he snuck away. And the American doctor, looked at the lawyer and said, "Wow, aren't we lucky?" And the Cuban immigrant said, "No, no, no. I'm the lucky one. I had someplace to go. And if you don't take care to keep America free, you won't have any place to go from here." And so my family came from Scandinavia to the United States, and we have always been reminded through the generations of how lucky we are that we were able to become American citizens. And so I'm very, very proud to be an American. And the 4th of July, because I love my country so deeply, really is my favorite holiday.
Well, it's a great day, and I love it. I love the small town parades. I love the big mall celebration. We're going to talk about how you weave the 4th of July into Edge of Honor. One of the many amazing parts of Edge of Honor is that. But I want to begin with the Gerber LMF2 infantry blade with the Rubbermaid handle from page 270. That's my favorite knife too, Brad. I don't know how that happened. That's a real coincidence.
That's it. Yeah, you can cut right through an electrical cord with that and not get shocked. Gerber makes a great knife, and a lot of the guys that go downrange, soldiers, sailors, Marines, they all carry that thing. It's a fabulous knife.
You know,
So
I
I'm
always
glad that
thought
I hit
Gerber
upon your
was baby
favorite.
food. I
No,
always
they're a
thought it was a
knife
baby
manufacturer.
food. So when I wandered across a Gerber knife, I thought, boy, Brad's deep into the gear section over at Bass Outfitters again. So that's a real knife.
That's a real knife. Yes, I own one. It's a
Okay.
great knife.
Now I mentioned on Wednesday when we talked, this is set in my backyard. So I want to begin with a very parochial question: is the yacht club that features in this book actually there?
The Mount Vernon Yacht Club is legit. It is actually there, a couple miles south of Mount Vernon, George Washington's estate. It's there, and I don't know that anybody until they hear this broadcast or if they've read the book since it was released on Tuesday know that they were featured in the book. And I think that's got to be kind of an exciting thing for all the people of this lovely little club there, just south of Mount
Well,
Vernon.
last week I was at the Washington Golf Club for an event with my friends from the American Legislative Exchange Council. So the Easter eggs for me in this book, as I keep running in to my favorite haunts, I mentioned on Wednesday the off the record grill at the Hey Adam. Tell people about that and why it shows up here.
Yeah, I love the Hay Adams. It's got a lot of history there, and I've set stuff. And so you've got Lafayette Park, Lafayette Square right there. Then you've got the White House and the Hay Adams. And from the top of the Hay Adams Hotel, you can see the White House. It's just this wonderful, beautiful, beautiful hotel. During the Christmas season, I took my wife there, and we stayed in the hotel. It's absolutely gorgeous. And that off the record bar in the basement is just this really cool watering hole that a lot of people in the know in DC love to go. You can drop in there. It's great food, great drinks, wonderful atmosphere, and you never know who you're going to see there. In fact, when you and I talked on Wednesday, we were joking about Baltimore, and you mentioned Larry Hogan. I actually met Larry when I was there, so it's kind of a full circle now with
Oh,
that
it's
with
a
the Hay Adams.
lots of fun Easter eggs there. I want to also repeat what we mentioned for people who didn't hear it on Wednesday. The very excellent news that you reveal at the end in the acknowledgments of Edge of Honor. Scott Harvath, your hero through 24 books, is coming to the small screen. And do we know if it's Netflix or Apple, or do we just know if it's got a producer and a showrunner?
Nope, we know exactly who the broadcaster is going to be, and I am letting them make the announcement. So the way this works, Hugh, and since we've got the hour, I'll just give your listeners a little bit of an inside baseball thing. What's interesting is we've made the deal, and the way it works with the broadcaster is they want to see the first two screenplays, teleplays, if you will, completely written, and then an outline for the remaining six shows. And if they're convinced you're on track, and listen, as I said on Wednesday, we've got the director for our television show. We've got the John Wick director, Chad Stahelski, as our EP, one of our EPs. We've got Howard Gordon, who is the force behind Homeland and 24. And then as our showrunner writer, we've got Steve Lightfoot, who did The Punisher. He's done a ton of other stuff. He did Hannibal with Mads Mikkelsen and Larry Fishburne on NBC several years ago. So we have this powerhouse A+ team. So, but our broadcaster says, give us the first two scripts. Let us just make sure you're good. Let us see what you got planned for the next six. And once we see that, we'll give you the full green light. You can bring Hugh Hewitt in for his casting session, and he can read for
I
his
was
role.
wondering. I
And
was
then we can
wondering.
go
So.
ahead. Yes. So
I,
that's where
I
we are.
hope Guy Benson turns out to be one of the ground team people who get it in the neck early on when the attack on the embassy occurs. I don't want to give away too much here. Let's start. Could we get Guy to go down early as a bad guy? That would be a real shocker if we pulled the mask off of one of the bad guys. It was Guy Benson with an iron tree tattoo. People are going to have to read the book to figure out what the iron tree is, but that's got Guy Benson written all over it. Let's
It
go to
does.
one of your. Well, actually, let's do a big overview. When
Okay.
last we saw him, Scott and his wonderful new bride, Sylvie, were off for a wonderful vacation, which is recapped in the beginning of the book. But then they go back to Washington. They're unretired promptly, which always happens to Scott. If he wants to unretire, they're going to have to kill Brad Thor. So give people a little setup who are hearing you for the first time and don't know anything about Scott.
Sure. So first of all, what I always tell people is my books are like the James Bond movies. I said this the other day when you and I talked. If there's a new Bond movie in the theater, Doesn't matter if you've ever seen a Bond movie prior to that. You can go see the latest one. You're going to get caught right up. And that's what it is with my book. Same situation. So Scott Harvath has married this beautiful Norwegian spy. She's attended 4th of July celebrations in Oslo at the U.S. Embassy. She's never been on American soil. Now she's married to an American. He is determined to give her the best 4th of July ever. So they come back from their honeymoon. It's kind of end of June, running up to the beginning of the 4th of July holiday, and he's trying to figure out where is he going to take her to watch the fireworks. He doesn't have the contacts at the White House that he used to watch on the South Lawn. Doesn't know anybody at the Canadian Embassy, which for listeners that don't know, they have an awesome rooftop and they do a great 4th of July party. So Harvath's kind of thinking about all this stuff, and Solvay scores a great set of tickets, not for the 4th of July, but to celebrate the midsummer Scandinavian holiday at the Norwegian Embassy. And that's in chapter 1. They go, there's a big protest outside the vice president's residency at the Naval Observatory, which is right across the street from the ambassador, the Norwegian ambassador's home. And something happens there. As we joke, Guy Benson causes quite a ruckus, and there's a lot of death and destruction there thanks to Guy Benson. And so that draws not only Harvath in, but his young wife, who works for Norwegian intelligence, is now called to action. And they both go on these two separate tracks. And what they slowly discover is that with a new administration in DC, I have the youngest president since JFK gets elected in my book. There's a shadowy cabal that does not like this president and doesn't like that this president isn't fulfilling his promises. And they decide to overthrow this president. So slowly but surely, Harvath starts to piece together what's going on, and he has to stop it.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot. When you get into the thriller genre, it often happens at a young age with Fletcher Nebble. You mentioned Nelson DeMille. These were the books of my youth, and I love 7 Days in May and all that sort of thing. But this is updated and made very real. I don't know if you were following the news when you were on your book tour, but the deputy director of the CIA on his personal account put out the fact that Director Brennan and Director Comey basically clipped Donald Trump when he was President-elect Trump in 2017 by inserting the Steele dossier. So the idea of people planted deep in the government who were intent on doing the president political harm is by no means far-fetched, Brad Thor. And I'm sure you're going to find a lot of people who nod along at that section.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, in my book, there's a big October surprise that happens to the new president. And this is during the campaign. He reflects back on it, which causes him to have quite a bit of bitterness towards certain parts of the government, because he's convinced he had done a study abroad over in Russia and fell in love with a young woman over there. And suddenly this thing before Facebook, before AOL, suddenly gets floated right in October. And they're trying to make him look like a Manchurian candidate, which he's not. And it, as you know from reading the book, it makes him very angry with a particular segment of the government because he's convinced
as he should be. We're
it.
coming right back with Brad Thor. The book is Edge of Honor. Go get it. Welcome back, America. Dino Washington's My Man's an Undertaker. Brad Thor always works a few titles into his novels, and this one is another one that is new to me. I don't know who Dino Washington is. I've never heard My Man's an Undertaker before, but your musical taste mix very well with your plot line in Edge of Honor, Brad. I want to ask you about Chuck, Armstrong, Coughlin, and Bunker Radio. Now, I have my theories. It's a composite character, obviously. But I am curious whether or not you think all these minor league podcasts matter. Do you think they matter?
Well, I think some are not minor league. I think they matter tremendously. I think as people have lost a certain amount of faith in their institutions and legacy media, as we've been able to cocoon ourselves in comfortable information spaces where we only hear what we want to hear. Yeah, I think I think they have a lot of influence and a lot of ability to sway opinion. I've long said that I think one of the biggest dangers to America, one of the biggest weaknesses in our national national security armor is the internet. What happens when you get into a Facebook page, let's say, or a Facebook group, and you're only in with people who think and believe the way you do, you actually let your guard down because you trust all these people you're listening to. And it is a prime area for bad actors outside the United States to try to influence you, to insert myths and disinformation. So, I mean, listen, Hugh, I've been looking forward to this interview because I knew you would recognize that character's last name. I mean, we had a father call
Oh,
us.
from the
That
30s, you
was,
bet.
yeah, that's exactly who this guy's based on.
But what's interesting to me is that his middle name is Armstrong. So I went and looked up the middle names of a lot of different people who are in that world, sort of on the edge of major media, but nevertheless narrowcasting to a deeply attached, very loyal audience. I didn't find any Armstrong. So did you borrow that from anyone, or did you just make that up?
Yeah, I think the muse was sitting on my shoulder and I was looking for a middle name and I wanted something that had some heft and some weight to it. And I think that's probably where that came from. Yeah, that wasn't
All right.
based on anybody. Yeah.
Now, the one thing that wasn't clear to me, Brad, and this is without a spoiler, is the Coughlin character connected with the conspiracy, or is he a dupe?
No, he's definitely connected. He's definitely connected. In fact, I had this whole thing. I wanted to do like a massive raid where once they figure out he's part of the conspiracy, they all storm into his broadcasting offices, thinking they've got him, thinking he's live on air, only to arrive and find out it's just a tape and that he's fled the country. But unfortunately, that part got that full thing that I wanted to do got cut. So, but anyway, yeah, he's a
You
bad
see, I
actor. There's
thought
no question.
maybe, I just thought maybe he might be the useful idiot type who was being played by the bad guys, who I'm not going to reveal too much about. All right,
Yeah.
let's go to a question. What is an Israeli bandage?
So an Israeli bandage is this kind of you'll see them in tactical kits. It is a ace bandages don't have like a lot of the squeeze. If you think of an ace bandage with like spandex in it, is probably the best with like a lot of added spandex. If you had an ace bandage that wasn't smooth, that was kind of corrugated, and it's good for wound dressing, particularly when there's been uh, like shootings, like if you got a mass shooting or they use them in combat and that kind of a thing. Very good for trying to help stop bleeding and so on and so forth.
How'd they pick up the name? Because the IDF invented it first.
Yeah, it's the Israelis that put that out. They've seen a lot of combat. We have too, and we share a lot of information. And you go to any of these big military trade shows and things like that, and that's one of the quick clot was a big thing. That was American, I believe, not Israeli. The quick stopping of blood with quick clot. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that law enforcement ends up adopting that were developed for the battlefield, and that
All right, now the
bandage
next
is
thing I
one of
want
them.
to know is nosocomophobia real? I didn't look it up. It's on page
Yes.
78, and I don't
Yeah.
have the affliction, but I'm just wondering if it's real.
So all of those afflictions where I have the senior FBI agent teasing his junior agent and diagnosing her, all those are legit. All those I looked up.
I thought your agents are incredibly well done. Do you have friends in the Bureau who are both new arrivals and long tenured pros like your pair in this book?
I do, and it's funny. The elder FBI agent there. My dad had a very good friend who's like godfather to me, who was lifelong FBI, and so I got to go to the FBI big conference in Sun Valley, Idaho, every single year, and the director would come out. I was really lucky as a civilian to attend this. And so I met a lot of these guys who are old school. And boy, if I let a four-letter word slip, oh, I would just get dressed down on the spot. They wouldn't even pull me aside. They'd give me a talking to as a grown man for his language. So that's where that Carolyn character comes from. And then Fields is actually this fun younger character who's beginning her career. Carolyn is ending his career at the FBI, and she's just got nothing but runway in front of her. And to put them together in the way they tease each other and have such obvious respect and love for each other, it's just a real fun contrast. The old school and now the younger new school.
And Fields is a good shot. I don't think that's a spoiler. I just want people to
No.
know Fields is a good shot. I'm not sure Carolyn is, but they could get, if you ever do spin-off, just straight crime. Although it's a different genre, isn't it, Brad? Straight crime from thrillers.
It's it's more kind of procedural. You set up, at least in television, they set up at the beginning. Every episode tends to be very self-contained. Here's the crime, and we solve the crime by the end. I mean, some people stretch it out for a season. You're chasing a serial killer, whatever. A little bit different, but yeah, I love that. I think Carolyn and Fields would be very compelling characters to watch in
Good spin-off.
episodic dramas. Yeah.
Now I have one more comment for this segment. I don't think there's a Brad Thor challenge coin in my future. Am I right about that?
Well, maybe. You know the material. You read every single book. I can't think of anyone who deserves one more than you do, Hugh.
But
I'll
you
pop
don't
one in the
have
mail
a
to you.
Brad Thor challenge coin, do you?
I do. If I stepped off character, in fact, I can pull it out of my briefcase, and when we come back in this next segment, I'll show you to the camera. I do have one.
Oh, that's pretty impressive because there's a wry aside about challenge coins in here and about people who always give them out at inopportune times. And
Yep.
it does seem like the inopportune times that I've been given a challenge coin are greater than the opportune times that I have not been given a challenge coin. What about the line, cheat days don't work? That's going to really upset a lot of my audience because they all reserve cheat day. Like Dwayne lives on cheat days from the myphdweightloss.com program. So cheat days don't work?
That's, you know what? Give it 2 months and they'll switch the data and the science all over again. That's that when I was writing the book, that was the latest. I was a big cheat day fan, and man, did I go big on cheat day. But that was the latest stuff that I heard, so I wrote it in there. But
All right.
by the time next 4th of July rolls around, it could be totally different.
No. Okay, there's the music. I'll come back with
Sorry,
my
Dwayne.
next question after this. Don't go anywhere, America. Brad Thor's brand new book, Edge of Honor. I'm doing a thriller, which is a fabulous page turner. I finished the book, but I'm doing it in a way to set the table to encourage you to go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order it for overnight delivery so you can enjoy it tomorrow on your long day off, this long weekend. Stay tuned to our 4th of July special right here on The Hugh Hewitt Show. Eflin James, I'd Rather Go Blind, is also in Brad Thor's brand new book, Edge of Honor. Edge of Honor's in bookstores now. Brad, did you find the challenge coin was one handy?
I did. So I make a here's an example of one. I make a challenge coin. This is from Use of Force a couple of books ago, and I have the book art on one side and then my logo on the other side. And I make one of these every single year to give away to fans. I take them to my book signings and things like that, and I do trivia. So I give away a few every book signing.
Oh, that's very smart. So people will have to
Yeah,
know, for
fun.
example, about the Gerber LMF2 infantry blade in order to get a challenge coin.
You would have nailed it, Hugh. You would have nailed it.
All right. All right. Now I want to go to the most disturbing list here on page 212. You're talking about a mole in the government. Think about it. Someone with the right access, someone who knew some things we were doing. Why not? It wouldn't be the first time the government had a bad actor on its payroll. Snowden, Manning, Winter, Teixeira. We've been particularly awash in these anti-government types over the last decade. You know, I didn't really realize it till I saw it in black and white, Brad. You're absolutely right. You keep a list of the traitors somewhere in your office.
You know what? It's all at the forefront of my mind, to tell you the truth, Hugh. These are all young 20 somethings who think that they should be the arbiters of what should be a national secret and what shouldn't. I've never liked how certain parts of our nation have lionized these people. I am very much against that. I would have rather all of these people, if they had a beef, if they had taken what they found that they thought was so terrible and gone to Rand Paul, for example, and his staff, and vetted it that way. And I don't like this. I don't like when we have these young people that are dumping to WikiLeaks or whatever it may be. I just think that's very, very bad. We cannot survive as a nation if we have people, regardless of their age, taking upon themselves to decide what secrets should and shouldn't be made public. It's not for one person to decide.
Now, my knowledge of MMA, mixed martial arts fighting, Brad, is about up there with Tibetan basket weaving. I just don't know anything about MMA. So Is there an association between MMA and undercurrents in our society that you don't particularly favor, or is that just a useful bit for the book?
No, it's very true. So this has been, it is a Russian propaganda vehicle, and it's geared towards spiking nationalism and anti-government sentiment in the United States. So through different kind of fight clubs, if you will, the Russians have been looking to recruit and influence wayward young men in our country. And so it is a disturbing trend. The Russians have been successful in Western Europe, putting these leagues together, these kind of fisticuffs, bare knuckle boxing, MMA style things. They've done it all over Europe and in the UK, and they have been pushing to make inroads here as well. And they have been successful. And there's some key players in real life in this fight club kind of a world that are doing Russia's bidding in a way that's very, very disturbing. So that part of the book is absolutely true.
How did you find out about that? I found it very disturbing, but I also was wondering if it was the real part or if it was just a bridge to a character moment.
No, it's real, and there are some very intrepid reporters that have done some very in-depth pieces on this effort by this Russian kind of nationalist neo-Nazi guy that has been backed by the Russian government to push this stuff out. So the information's out there. You got to dig and you got to dig and you got to dig. I liken what I do to a certain degree. Well, I call what I do faction, where you don't know where the facts end and the fiction begins. I have to be like a journalist. I have to have sources. I have to vet those sources, and I've got to dig deep because it's not all make believe in my books. I pride myself on the fact that people in the intelligence community, in the government, they read my books for pleasure, but then I hear from them and they're like, "Gosh, you got that exactly right. You know, that's great."
Yeah,
So
I was gonna throw a penalty flag when Scott
there
got
you
into
go.
the Potomac, which is a life-threatening adventure. I live pretty close to the Potomac, and I run along
Uh-huh.
it almost every day. And no one swims in the Potomac. But then you had him get a penicillin standby, or wish he had one at least. So you corrected for yourself there. I don't know how far up the Potomac you have to go before you can actually swim in it. Do you?
Don't know. I don't know. All I know is that it's a pretty nasty business, and Harvath had to don some scuba gear, as you know, for that part of the story. So that's why, when his team, if people are like, "What else do you need? You got all the scuba gear," and he's like, "Yeah, I need the biggest needle full of penicillin you got, and you got to jam it right into me when I get out of the water."
One more segment with Brad Thor on this 4th of July. His brand new book is Edge of Honor. You can go right from listening or watching on the Salem News Channel to your Amazon or Barnes & Noble account. Order it. It'll be at your house. Maybe today. Maybe in time to enjoy it over this long weekend. One more segment with Brad coming up. Stay tuned. Welcome back, America. ABBA is not my idea of a good time, and it's actually not too much in Brad Thor's brand new Scott Harvath thriller called Edge of Honor, but there's a little bit in there. Solvi, by the way, did you have to get a typewriter with that funny whatever umlaut that they put over Solvi's name? What do they call that thing?
So it's an O with a slash through it. And the umlaut's like the two dots, if memory serves. I don't know what they call the O with the slash through it, to be honest.
But is it on your typewriter? Because you have to use it
It's a,
every third
it,
page.
yeah, it's a special character. I have to actually, from the drop down menu in Microsoft Word, I have to go hunt for it. But yeah,
All right.
it's not on my keyboard.
All right. Now I want to go to page 232 because it's as though you had sat down with Jonathan Haidt and had a long mind meld on the dangers of cell phones. Scott Harvath is holding up his phone and says, "I blame this. Keeping up with the Joneses used to mean keeping up with the people in your neighborhood. The Joneses got a new car. You strove to get a new car. They went on vacation in Florida. You shot for the same thing. They were not the only people you had economically had things in common with, but they were living real, authentic lives. You knew when Mr. and Mrs. Jones had a fight or when Mrs. Jones had a health scare. Today, people try to keep up with what they see on social media, but none of it is real. It's all fake. 30 influencers rent a mansion or lease a Bentley together and shoot all their content on the one day of each month they pretend the stuff is theirs. It's crazy, and it's worse than that. It's this realistic. Yet people convince themselves their lives suck because they don't enjoy the lifestyles they believe those influencers are living. If I found a lamp with a genie and only got one wish, it would be for the internet to disappear. Tell me how you really feel, Brad Thor.
I'll tell you, I'll sum it up this way: comparison is the thief of joy. That's it. That's why social media stinks, Hugh, because all these people look at this stuff and they want it and think they should have it, and that's the way life should be. It's all fake. And I particularly feel bad for our wives and daughters who believe in these impossible beauty standards. I feel too. My wife doesn't participate in any of that stuff. My daughter's very level-headed, but I still feel terrible for everyone that looks at social media all day long and wants that stuff. It's just, it's also fake. So I'm not a fan of
Yeah.
the internet. I'm no Luddite by any stretch of the imagination, but I do not. I would, with one wish, I'd make it go bye bye in a second.
Now, the good part of it are things like a Tria mystery bus. It's an X account that alerts me when there's a good new mystery writer or thriller writer out there, and I curate my feed to ruthlessly throttle out the bots. But we are going to be overwhelmed, and Harvath kind of intuits that we are going to be overwhelmed soon in a sea of disinformation. And in fact, the heart of this book is the disinformation campaign that Putin is running against the country. And I believe that's a real thing, by the way. I don't think it's just Putin. I think the Chinese are much better at it. I think the Iranians are knuckleheads, but the Russians are pretty good in getting better.
Yeah, they are, and even going back to the that big troll farm they have in St. Petersburg. I mean, they're really experts in this, and this is, as you and I have discussed many times. I am so afraid that the internet and social media in particular is the biggest chink in our national security armor. That Americans, when they believe they are in a bubble, in a silo, a Facebook page where they believe everybody thinks the way they do, that's where the Russians get in and get them, because you let your guard down when you believe you're with other fellow travelers, like-minded people. You
Yeah.
believe what you see in those spaces, and that's very dangerous.
Now, Brad, I got to ask you a current events question. If you watched the Ukraine Russia war, you saw Ukraine use drones far deep in Russia to hit Siberia. You saw Israeli use drones that they built in Iran to take out a dozen nuclear scientists and double that number of generals or triple that number of generals using drones and Mossad agents. How open and vulnerable do you think the United States is to that kind of planting, forward placement of assets to strike us?
Well, if it's drones, I think there's no place that's safe from those. I think you can assemble them with over the counter parts, and I think it's an area that we're really vulnerable. I mean, look, when the Chinese balloon came overhead, that turned out to be, because of the physics, a very difficult problem for us, because you couldn't just shoot it down. It could take miles before it fell to the ground. We didn't know where it would fall. There was a lot of logistics. Like, the people gave the administration a lot of heat, but if you read some of the thorough reporting about that Chinese balloon that went overhead, that's a very difficult thing to knock out of the sky, particularly because we wanted to recover it. We didn't want to just knock it down over Alaska and drop it in an area that was very hard to get to, that might have risked the lives of U.S. service members to go in there and retrieve the wreckage. So I think that's a part of the future that's really tough. And you're going to be surprised to hear me say this: I think this is what makes the French so incredibly brilliant. The French are lending so much support to the Ukrainians. The French have so many people on the ground that are learning this drone warfare. They are going to be the most competent people in NATO, in Western Europe. They are going to know drone warfare, better than we do. It's incredible
There's
how
a lot of
smart they
drone
are.
warfare. There's a lot of drones doing a lot of things in Edge of Honor that made my eyes
Yeah.
go up. I've got one last question. Do the things that Nicholas used to the mini EMPs, do they exist?
So there's a lot of experimentation that's been going on with these things. So I fictionalize those. I call them goblins in the book, those little hockey puck style things that Nicholas uses. So there's a lot of research. I can't say that there's anything actively in use that does that, but I know that that is a big goal of being able to fry out electronics and limit the damage to a small area.
I thought it was a beautifully written part. By the way, I kind of
Thank
got
you.
I didn't figure what was going on until it was far advanced in that segment of the plot, and I salute you for that. Brad, we got 1 minute left. Where's the next Scott Harvath novel going to be set? Edge of Honor is set right in the nation's capital. It's fabulous. That's why people ought to get it. Enjoy it this weekend. Where's the next one going to be set?
Well, I don't know yet. I've got a couple of ideas. I haven't narrowed it down. I really like having Harvath back on U.S. soil, so we could see another one, maybe not in D.C., but somewhere else in the United States.
Now, you can go shoot up a lot of things in L.A. and people won't cry. Not people, just places. Brad Thor, congratulations on Edge of Honor. Thank you, and congratulations on taking Scott Harvath to the big screen. I want Benson down with a Tree of Iron tattoo on him in the first in the first episode of the first Harvath season, and I hope it runs for 25 seasons. Brad, have a great 4th of July.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with me today, and congratulations on Edge of Honor.